Welcome to the 5th episode of my series, Madden Training 101, where we'll take an in-depth look at various mechanics, features, and improvements to gameplay and examine how closely they reflect the game of football. Today's episode is meant solely to compare and contrast two fundamentally different approaches to zone coverage and highlight Madden's transition from one to the other over the past few years. In future episodes, I'll explore the accuracy of the implementation and the ramifications of both on your defensive schemes. But for now, let's find out what both methods of zone coverage entail. So the first type of coverage is spot dropping, where zone defenders drop to specific landmarks. After reading pass, defenders drop to their spot immediately, then keep their head on a swivel while reading the quarterback's eyes. Spot dropping is simple to teach, it's simple to execute. But the downside is that defenders often get stuck covering grass because defenders are fixed to one spot. Now let's take a look at pattern reading. Rather than dropping to a specific spot and waiting for receivers to arrive, pattern reading dictates that defenders must choose to cover the most dangerous threat within their zone. While spot dropping defenders read the eyes of the quarterback, pattern reading requires that defenders read the receivers to their side, which then determines the subsequent alteration in their drop. Pattern reading is more difficult to teach, it's even more difficult to learn. But if executed properly, it's a much more effective means of adapting to the vast array of passing concepts. Now, for many years, spot dropping was the only means of playing zone in Madden football. Only recently have pattern reading concepts been implemented in Madden. But it's important that we analyze how these changes have impacted the framework of playing defense. But first, let's go back in time to the days of Madden NFL 11 and take a look at the film. Now, I want you to key in first on the three linebackers highlighted here. Each is responsible for the respective hook curl zone. The weak side backer here is responsible for the flat, but we'll get to that in just a moment. Notice when the ball is snapped, how, after reading pass, each linebacker drops to their designated area in a linear route. More importantly, notice how after reaching their spot, they remain stationary, unresponsive to the wide receiver routes. In this case, Todd Heap crosses through each linebacker's zone, yet none react to his presence. They fail to pass Heap off to their neighboring line of support, and also fail to diagnose the next threat. The linebackers simply remain planted at the spot of their initial drop, reacting only when the ball is thrown. The same can be said of the flat curl defender here, who, once the ball is snapped, retreats to his designated area, blissfully unaware of his surroundings, and fails to better position himself to make a play on an incoming Ray Rice who releases to the flat. The linebacker here only begins to move after the ball is thrown, and never anticipates the offense's movements. Now, let's take a look at the play as a whole. With defenders not reacting to or anticipating offensive movements, combined with the defense's reluctance to disengage from their initial spot drop, many defenders are stuck covering large amounts of grass. And as you can imagine, this means lots of passing windows for a quarterback to dissect a defense that refuses to adapt on the fly. Alright, now let's go back to Madden NFL 15 and see just how far things have progressed. Here, the Bears come out in their single back formation with their 12 personnel, while the Lions select a 4-3 cover 3 sky coverage. First, we'll key in on the Mike, who's playing a hook curl zone. He takes a slight drop, but then quickly covers tight end Dante Rosario, the number 2 receiver weak side. But as Rosario cuts outside, the Mike leaves his man and anticipates a new threat coming inside. So, he spots Alshon Jeffrey approaching on the crossing route and quickly sidesteps to better position himself against his new man. Now let's take a look at the curl flat defenders. On the backside, it's the Will backer playing the flat. He sidesteps towards his zone after reading pass and then drops to take the number 1 receiver. However, once Marquez Wilson runs past him, the Will then turns his attention to a likely incoming threat. It's tight end Rosario running an out route, and once the Will relinquishes his grasp on number 1, he takes number 2, or Rosario, and prevents him from getting wider than he is playing. Finally, let's look at the strong side curl flat defender. In this case, it's the strong safety. While he doesn't move initially with the number 1 on his side, Alshon Jeffrey, it's more important how he handles the running back releasing out of the backfield. Rather than remaining fixed in one position, reacting only after the ball is thrown, the strong safety here does not let running back Matt Forte, the number 3 receiver, cross his face before breaking on the route. Had the strong safety not anticipated Forte's route, he would have been in poor position to make a play had Cutler opted for a safety valve. Alright, that's all the footage for this week. Again, today's episode is intended to explain the differences between spot dropping and pattern reading, and illustrate just how far Madden has come with regard to zone defense. Of course, pattern reading has yet to be fully realized. The defensive AI now reads and reacts to the offense's movements as the play develops, which helps to prevent big plays and of course is more reminiscent of the way football is actually played at the NFL level. Now, if you haven't already, check out the first 4 episodes of this series on the corners of your screen. Also, stay tuned for an all-new series where I'll endeavor to take an NFL franchise to the Super Bowl, employing preconceived game plans and breaking down specific plays both pre and post-snap, in what will be the most simulation-oriented series on the market. Finally, don't forget to rate, comment, and subscribe for weekly gaming content. Stay tuned for next week's episode, and until then, take care, and I'm out.